Hey, remember this? I say to the Alzheimer's patient. Game Builder's Garage is Nintendo's attempt at one of those make-it-yourself games. Kind of in the same vein as Sony's Dream or Xbox Project Spark.
Guess we'll have to make our own.
It was one of those out-of-nowhere games that Nintendo puts out every once in a while, like Ring Fit Adventure or the Labo series. I'd actually love to talk about Labo one day if I could get my hands on it somehow. I'm not even sure where I put it. Not in the garage, that's for sure. It's like a fucking oven in there. It was released back in June 2021. Not many people really talk about it, like at all. I wouldn't be surprised if many of you watching this are only reminded of it because you came across this video. I wonder why though. It's surprisingly cheap, only being around $30. Well, that's cheap for Nintendo standards. They rarely release a game with a price point like that, especially on Switch. They're releasing Luigi's Mansion 2 for $60. What on God's green earth? Well, I wanted to give it a shot. I'd love to make a game myself one day, so who knows? Maybe this will be a great learning experience for me, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. When you start up the game, it just immediately starts you off in the tutorial. I really like how they handle it here. When it opens, you see this very basic looking platforming challenge. You try to complete it, but quickly realize that you can't jump, just like an elephant with diabetes. This little dot guy then comes along and tells you that the coding ain't done yet. And since Nintendo's so shit at doing it, we have to do it ourselves. They don't waste any time, they just immediately toss you in it. Anyway, we get taken to the inner workings of the little game here. This is where you'll be spending a majority of your time, since this is how you'll be putting your game together. And trust me, that's really not an understatement. I spent a good couple hours in some of these. They really want to make sure that you fully understand how these things work. The way that these tutorials are handled are like this. You have 7 different ones to go through, and the game will hold your hand through making each one, getting more and more complicated until finally you're just making a full-blown 3D platformer. Whatever new nodon is added, these are called nodons by the way, I don't know why. What is a nodon? The Nodon are a Dragonkin faction that was active on Orthan before the Dragonkin were bound to the Stone of the Oh wait, this is the RuneScape wiki. Whenever you're introduced to a new Nodon, the game lets you go into a separate tutorial area that focuses exclusively on what it is and goes into more explicit detail on why it works the way it does. I really like this. In the part where you're just building the game, they'll tell you what a Nodon's function is, but they don't go much deeper than that. They simply tell you that it's good at this one purpose to get your game to work. Meanwhile, these go into more of the why it works. It's not like these are absolutely required, but if you want to know more, the game lets you learn more. It's great. And finally, after every step, the game lets you go through these checkpoints, which acts like small tests to really make sure you understand what you were taught before proceeding. It's very thorough, but I understand why. Making a game, even in a simplified form like this, isn't easy, and I imagine this game was made to be a gateway for kids to dip their toes into programming. Hell, it was pretty complicated even for me. I struggled sometimes. Despite following each and every bit of the instructions, I got confused at some points when putting together my own game and had to revisit some of them immediately after doing them to get a refresher on some things. I think what helps keep these things engaging and not become dull as hell, despite being 2 or more hours, is the fact that these Nodons have unique personalities that fit into what their function is, which actually helps me remember what each one does, makes it more digestible. I also really like that the main tutorial is basically just creating the games. It's not just a rundown on what each function does and how it works and then it goes, well, good luck. They walk you through actually making it, which helps better visualize how everything comes together. They really went out of their way to cover all the bases for this. I think they did a very good job. Okay, after you get through the long tutorials, you're finally able to make a game for yourself. Well, to be fair, you can actually try creating a game before completing any of them, but like, you'll be very confused, trust me. For this part, I think it would be fun to lay out the step-by-step process I took when it came to actually making my game. For myself, to keep things simple, I decided just to recreate a game I already did during the tutorials, specifically the ball tilting one, where you have to use motion controls to move a ball around to collect apples. If Hal ain't gonna make a Kirby Tilt and Tumble sequel, then god damn it, I'll make it myself. Now, before even placing a single note on, I wanted to have a unique gimmick compared to the first rolling level they have you make. There, it utilized portals as an obstacle that send you back to the beginning if you touch it, so you have to be careful. So, when thinking, I thought it'd be cool to combine something that I learned from a different game I made in the tutorials, Tag. In that, you have these occasional balls that fall downward, and if you get touched by it, it kills you. I decided to incorporate that into my tilting game, so I got to work. When it came to the actual layout, I'll be honest, I just kind of winged it. I started making the bottom section since, at the very least, I knew I wanted to have a part where you had to go into a hallway and you had to use the gaps on the sides to avoid getting hit. So that was the very first thing I put together. After constructing that, I decided to have the one little ball that you play as start all the way on the top left here. It's a completely safe area and gives you ample time to observe the board and the timing of when these obstacles come out. I placed the first apple on the bottom left here, so that the only thing you have to worry about is this one single obstacle that you have plenty of time to react to, since it's coming all the way from the other side. It was at this point I ran into an issue. You see, when these spheres hit the wall, it bounces off of it, and then it just kind of sits there, blocking walking away until the next sphere comes along and crashes into it, busting both of them. So I changed the property of the wall so that it's destructive towards spheres. It worked well, so the obstacle breaks when it actually hits the wall. But then I noticed a pretty big oversight. You're also a sphere, so if you touch the wall, you also get destroyed. I don't want that, which is the exact same thing my mom said to me when I was born. I tried to see if there was a way to make my ball indestructible regardless of the properties of the wall, and perhaps there is a way of doing it, but I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure my way out of a wet paper bag, so there's probably a simple solution. What I decided to do was change the objects being fired from spheres to cylinders. I was worried that this would cause issues since they can't roll, but it worked out surprisingly well. I just had to change the launch power so it actually reaches the wall, change the wall so it's only destructive towards cylinders, and the issue was fixed. So now I was on my way to build the next part of the level. I decided to incorporate at least one portal, since that was a big thing in the first Tilt and Tumble game, so I included one at the very end here, which brings you to the upper left section. Initially, I was going to put the apple actually in the way of the cannon, and the cylinder would pass over it, but unfortunately this didn't really work. You see, the apple is actually a physical object. You're technically not actually collecting the apples are just getting destroyed when you run into them, and the counter keeps track of how many you destroyed. There is a way to turn off the collision of the apple, but it's an all or nothing thing. You can't pick and choose what it can and can't touch. So I had to rework it by simply placing it down in this little section, and you simply had to roll in the way of the line of fire to get access to it. For the final section of the level, I wanted it to be the hardest, so I decided to have it where the player needs to pass through two projectiles firing at the same time. Nuzzle the apple in the corner, so you have to time your movements very well to get it without getting utterly annihilated. That was the building process of the level, but we're far from done. Now's the part when we actually get everything to function. It's like the human body. You might have all the organs, but if the heart goes out, then things just got a whole lot harder. The biggest thing I struggled with was actually getting the counter to work. Whenever I'd run into an apple, it'd subtract into the negatives. So I added a constant of 5 so that when I started off, it would count down. But when I did that, it started counting upwards. Huh? I messed with it for a while, changing settings, mixing the placement of the connections, until finally I got it to function via brute force. I don't know what I did to fix the issue, but whatever, it works, that's what matters. After that was to add the function of the game celebrating your victory and resetting it when you win. I decided to make fireworks go off when you succeeded, so I placed one down and quickly realized that the one will literally only have one firework go off and that's it. I had to go in and set 4 individual firework tiles and then link them up to their own timers so that they just don't go off all at once. I think this moment right here really hammered it in how just nothing is done for you in game development. Even as something as simple as having a little fireworks show requires some time and focus. It's not just gonna do it itself, you gotta put it together. And that's it. That's the level. Let's see it in its entirety, shall we? This took me 2 hours to put together. Man, I already knew that game development was hard and time consuming, but this game really opened my eyes to that. Trying to design the level, getting things to work properly, fixing unintended issues, just being a time consuming process altogether. And I didn't even write any code for this shit. Could you imagine having to start completely from scratch? This would have taken me a week. No wonder games take forever to make. Anyway, that's my level. I'm gonna go ahead and put the code on screen right now if you want to play it for yourself. Alright, well, making games isn't the only thing you could do in this. You can also play other people's games. And Nintendo, already having experience with this kind of thing with Mario Maker, where you can make and share Mario levels with ease, said, fuck that shit. Hunt down the codes for these games yourself manually, you fucking subhuman level pieces of shit. Before playing it for this video, I was under the impression you couldn't download other people's games at all. You just make them and show them to your friends or family or something. But no, you can download other games. You just have to hunt them down. Why would they do that? It's because they don't want people uploading inappropriate content? But that can't be it. They have a report function, so what gives? I think it was probably because it just wasn't what this game was really all about in Nintendo's eyes. In Mario Maker, since it's a Mario game, it was always going to attract a lot of different kinds of people, including ones that don't really have interest in making levels themselves. So the game was made to be a community game, making levels and sharing them with the world to see. Game Builder Garage is not like that at all. It's an original IP about making your own games. Game Builder Garage, that's what it's called. So really, the only people who would be interested in buying this game are the people who want to make some themselves. Another reason is probably that this is like a budget game, and Nintendo probably didn't want to dedicate a server to hold levels for something like this. It's still pretty lame that it's not here though. Oh well, at least you can still download games, and I went through a couple. The first one I played was Getting a Snack at 3 a.m. It's a very relatable game. Tell me if you've heard this before. You wake up in the middle of the night as a kid, you're hungry, so you sneak to the kitchen to get a snack, most likely shredded cheese, just for your parents to find you and then obliterate you on the spot like that, like they kill you right there. That's what my dad would do. It's a very simple, silly game. You'll find a lot of these, but this is the one that caught my eye the most. Moving on, there's a Sonic fan game, because there's always a Sonic fan game in every engine, no exceptions. It's pretty expansive too. There's 5 codes for this one. The hub world, the tutorial, the 2 acts, and then the ending. It all works as well. You have the boost, you can wall jump, bounce into enemies, collect rings. It's very impressive. They're short, but that's to be expected. These levels do have a size limit, and you're playing as a speedy hedgehog. You're going to be using that space pretty quickly. I really enjoy this one quite a lot, actually. It's basically Sonic Generations. You have a 2D act and a 3D one. It's pretty cool. They even have a red ring down in the corner. It's the only red ring in the entire game, but still, I appreciate the effort. Super Garage Odyssey was probably the most technically impressive, and kind of really shows what you can do with this game. They somehow recreated the capture mechanic from Mario Odyssey. You can throw a hat on any creature and become them. It's pretty cool. The abilities are pretty limited. It's mostly letting you traverse over specific areas you couldn't before, but still pretty amazing. It's so technical that the game actually has to take time loading it all in anytime you die. Look at this. You think the Switch can handle complexity of this magnitude? There's 15 collectibles, which is pretty impressive. I really do have to wonder how long it took to make all this. It took me 2 hours to make a dumb sequel to the Tilt level. This all probably took weeks on end to do. I even decided to head into the game's code to see what's up, and holy cannoli, Batman. This is absolutely crazy. Props to this guy for actually putting it all together. The last one I tried out was one called Maze, which is quite unnerving. You have to keep moving forward. If you stop, you just die. I really enjoyed the atmosphere on this one. The background noise was very well done. I think this one might have been my favorite. Despite some limitations, this game is still a lot more extensive than I initially thought. You can really do a lot of crazy things with it. I had a lot of fun with it, and now I'm kind of sad nobody really talks about it anymore. Some people say there was a lack of an easy way to search games from within the game itself is what killed it, and yeah, that was probably a factor. That's not to say you can't easily find people sharing their levels online. There's actually a whole website made just for that. It's really cool. It's where I found these levels. However, I do think there is another reason why this game just isn't talked about all that much. I think most people are just not that interested in making games. So when this game was announced, they saw it and went, hey, that's pretty cool, and then just never bothered looking deeper into it. Nintendo probably knew that this game would be for a very niche part of their crowd. People who want to give making games a shot and want a simple entry point, or something for parents to buy their kids who have shown interest in that kind of thing. It's why it was given a $30 price tag. Even Nintendo knew you couldn't get away with making it full price. Hell, not even $50 or $40. But whatever. Doesn't really matter if a game isn't constantly in the public eye 24/7. It still has a dedicated player base, creating genuinely fun and unique games for people to try out. People clearly still enjoy it, and that's really cool. I enjoy it as well. I'll probably try making a few more levels on my own, and I'll let you guys give them a shot when they're done. Get ready for my next game. Player character suffers from elder abuse.